I know my animations suck, but you'll love them anyway. Recently, my father has been begging me to go to a Rangers game with him. I always say no because of how bad my past experiences have been. I remember when the old Globe Life Field was scheduled to close, and Dad was so desperate for me to go to one last game at that stadium with him, but still, no. Eventually, when the new Globe Life Field opened and COVID cases began to die down, his begging started up again. I have always had bad experiences at every baseball game I've been to, but Texas Rangers games were the ones I remember having the harshest impact. And I'm not throwing shade at the Rangers or the MLB or baseball in general, it's more of a personal thing. I love baseball games. Just going to one in person isn't my cup of tea. So for the first Rangers game, it was towards the end of 5th grade. My soon-to-be former Scoutmaster, Mr. Satoli, got my Boy Scout troop tickets to a game since he was a huge Rangers fan. I remember being really excited to go since it would be the first time I've ever been to a Rangers game. No offense to him, but he should have picked better seats because we were sitting in the section where it was high up, but it was the high up part where there was no shade, and the seats higher than ours did have shade. It was so hot up there that day, you could have baked a batch of brownies in that area. Okay, I don't know if he actually did choose those seats or if they were pre-assigned, but I clearly remember there being open seats in the shade way above us, and we had to sit in the sun for about 3 hours, or a huge chunk of it for my experience. That heat was so intense, I felt like one of the chips in the microwave from Sausage Party. Eventually, we get to the beginning of the game. At this point, I'm already out. The first pitch hasn't been thrown yet, and I'm like, ah! It's too hot! My parents, Go Rangers! And so a few innings later, and when I mean a few, I mean 3 innings which took roughly an hour, Mom and I went inside the stadium. I only went with her because it would have been the only chance to get in some shade. The only reason why she went in was because she wanted to go to the souvenir shop. But it wasn't the souvenir shop, it was a little pop-up stand that was nearby our seats. She asks me, Henry, would you like something? And I didn't care at all what they were selling. The whole time I was like, Mom, I want to go home. How about a pair of baseball cards? I want to go home. Baseball cards it is. After that, she goes to the concession stand. At that point, I figured that begging to leave wasn't going to work, so I decided to make the most of my suffering. Once she gets there, I yell, Mom, I want an ice Fanta. I don't care, it's 100 degrees Celsius out there. She then says, Hi, can I get 3 lemon chills and 3 bottles of water, please? Public service announcement. Lemon chills are the worst thing to have ever existed. They taste like Yeti vomit that's been covered in urine. When you eat those things, you're like, ugh, I can't believe I wasted my money on this, let alone waste my money by sitting in the sun for 3 hours. I don't get why people like them. They suck. If I ever have a baseball team of my own, I solemnly swear I will never sell lemon chills or anything similar at my stadium. My house, my rules. Speaking of food, I would see people get concessions that were 100 times more epic than what my family and I usually got. I would see people with super long hot dogs, chicken tenders, the ones that were in those bowls on top of epic souvenir cups, ice cream with baseball helmets as cups. But no, my parents would get the most generic food you could possibly get at a baseball game. Not just the lemon chills, but popcorn in those plastic bags and good old peanuts. I think they were trying to make the most generic baseball experience you could possibly have. This isn't the 1930s, Mom and Dad. This is the 2020s, or the early 2010s at the time of the games. The closest concessions we ever got to Epic were those basic souvenir cups that cost $20, but we didn't get them until another game. More on that later. Thankfully, we left early, and it wasn't because of me, it was because my mom was starting to get sick. But we didn't leave until Dad got his free Taco Bueno coupon, since they would only hand him out if the Rangers were in the lead at the end of the 5th inning. On our way home, we stopped at the hotel, and sat in the lobby, and I was laying on the couch all wiped out. Everyone was looking at me like, eh. Report my parents to CPS! Since then, I have been traumatized from ever going back to a Rangers game. Except my parents forced me to go back to them. Despite the fact my mom and I both got sick, my dad was like, I want to go back to another one! And mom ordered tickets for another game. So fast forward to the next game. It wasn't as bad as last time, but I still wish we didn't go. We were in the shade. Almost. It was in the part where it was closer to the field, but it was at the part where it was at the very end of the shade, and half the time I was tilting my head back and forth, trying not to get sunburnt while trying to get a good view. Ironically, my parents were nicer this time around, especially since they somehow have learned their lesson from last time. Or did they? Right after the game begins, of course we get the lemon chills. Not long after that, it's lunchtime. And that was when we got our souvenir cups, but we only bought two. To eat, I had pizza. I don't remember what brand it was, but I remember it being okay. And overall, it was a good game, but I still wish we blew it off. For the third Rangers game, it was actually a last minute surprise. I was coming home from a Boy Scout campout, and when I got home, Dad announced, "Henry, we're going to a Rangers game tonight." I yelled, "No!" Dad replied, "The troop reserved seats for tonight." Mr. Satilli organized another event, and either one or two things happened. One, Dad got tickets and never told me until the last minute, or two, I knew about it and it never came back to me until that moment. So I was mad either way since we were going. Not only that, but it was late at night. Late at night. And on the car ride, I was in a miserable mood. I didn't even take a bite out of my lemon chill. I just wanted to go home and rest, since I had a long weekend canoeing in Arkansas. This time, however, we were seated in the shade. Again, I don't know if the seats were pre-selected or whatever, but more importantly, why would Mr. Satilli organize a Rangers game on a school night? Throughout the whole game, I was nagging Dad to take me home. "Dad, I want to go home. Now, Henry." "Dad, I want to go home. Now, Henry." After nagging him nonstop, he eventually gave up. "Alright." And we went home. And that was the last time I have ever been to a Rangers game. As I said earlier, Dad keeps nagging me to go back to a Rangers game with him. He's like, "Henry, I'd like to go back to a Rangers game." And I still give the same response every time. No, I refuse to go back to a Rangers game. Dad, if you're watching this, I just want to let you know I will never go back to a Rangers game with you. And or Mom. If you want to go to a Rangers game, go with either Mom and or some of your friends. Or even go by yourself for that matter. My experiences have always sucked. The seating environments were uncomfortable, except for that night game. You and Mom would get the most generic food you can possibly get at an MLB stadium, and the games would usually be at a time where it was super hot or super late at night, where I had more important things to worry about than the Rangers losing. If I ever go back to a Rangers game, I'm going either by myself or with friends. Not with you, Dad, not with you, Mom, not even with the extended family. Nothing would be enough to make me go back to a Rangers game with you, Dad. Nothing. And Globe Life Field, do yourself a favor and never ever open the retractable sunroof at the new field, especially when it's scheduled to be 100 degrees outside. Ah, it's too hot! Go Rangers!